I gave my life to my company. They replaced me in 3 days. Don't be loyal. I gave my life to my company, not metaphorically, literally. I gave them my best years, my sharpest thinking, my strongest energy, my availability, my weekends, my holidays, my health, my sense of self. I organized my entire adulthood around the belief that loyalty mattered, that commitment would be remembered, that sacrifice would be rewarded in ways that went beyond a paycheck. I believed that deeply, and in 3 days they replaced me, not slowly, not painfully, not awkwardly, cleanly. I want to tell you how that happened because it didn't happen the way people imagine. There was no dramatic firing, no argument, no raised voices, no cruelty in the moment. That's what makes it worse. The process was efficient, polite, almost respectful. And that's exactly why it broke something in me that never fully came back. When I started at that company, I wasn't chasing status, I was chasing stability. I wanted to belong to something solid, something that felt bigger than me, something that would give my effort meaning. I wanted to build, not jump. I wanted roots, not momentum. They loved that about me. From the beginning, I was the dependable one. The one who stayed late without being asked. The one who answered emails on vacation. The one who said yes when others hesitated. I didn't complain. I didn't negotiate hard. I didn't push back much. I told myself I was being professional. I told myself I was investing in trust. And trust, I believed, was a two-way street. The years passed quietly. Promotions came slowly but steadily. Responsibility piled up faster than authority. People came to me when things went wrong. My name was attached to stability. When someone needed a problem solved without drama, I was the one they called. That felt good. It felt like being needed, and being needed is addictive in a way no one warns you about. I began to shape my life around that role. I skipped things at home because this quarter was critical. I postponed rest because this project couldn't wait. I ignored the signals my body sent me because next month would be lighter. Next month was never lighter, but I didn't resent it. That's important. I didn't feel exploited. I felt chosen. I felt trusted. I felt essential. I told myself that one day when it really mattered, all of this would count. That was the deal I made in my head. Loyalty now. Security later. What I didn't understand was that companies don't make deals with people. They make decisions, and decisions don't have memory. The moment everything changed was not dramatic. It was quiet. A meeting scheduled without context. A room that felt slightly too formal. Faces that avoided eye contact just enough to register. Language that sounded rehearsed but kind. They told me the company was restructuring, that my role was being reevaluated, that this wasn't about performance, that I had done nothing wrong, that they were grateful. Grateful is a strange word when it's paired with an ending. I nodded. I listened. I stayed calm. I even comforted one of them by saying I understood. That's how deeply the role had shaped me. Even in that moment, I was trying to make it easier for them. When I walked out of that building, something felt unreal. Not the loss of income, not the fear, something deeper, a kind of disorientation, like stepping off a moving walkway and realizing your legs don't remember how to stop. I went home and sat in silence. 3 days later, I checked the company website. My position was listed, different title, slightly broader scope. Exciting opportunity. They had already updated the org chart. My email had been reassigned. My calendar wiped clean. My access revoked. 3 days. That's how long it took to erase decades of loyalty. That's when it hit me. I hadn't been irreplaceable, I had been convenient. And convenience is always temporary. I started replaying everything. The late nights, the weekends, the sacrifices I framed as noble, the relationships I put on hold, the boundaries I never set because I didn't want to seem difficult. None of it slowed them down. None of it bought me time. None of it translated into protection. I wasn't angry at first, I was embarrassed. Embarrassed by how much of myself I had handed over without asking for anything solid in return. Embarrassed by how naive my loyalty now looked in retrospect. embarrassed by how easily I had confused appreciation with attachment. A company will appreciate you, it will not attach to you. That distinction is everything. As the days passed, something else surfaced. A strange grief, not just for the job, but for the version of myself that believed endurance would be remembered, that effort would be reciprocated, that staying would be safer than leaving. I had built my identity around being reliable, and suddenly there was nothing to be reliable for. That's when the silence became loud. In the next thread, I'll take you deeper into what happens after that realization. How loyalty rewires your self-worth, how replacement exposes the truth about corporate memory, and why so many people don't recover emotionally even when they recover financially. After they replaced me, time behaved differently. Days stretched without structure, mornings arrived without urgency. I woke up automatically at the same hour I always had, my body still trained to serve a calendar that no longer existed. I would sit at the edge of the bed and feel a brief surge of purpose before remembering there was nowhere I needed to be. That moment was worse than the meeting. Work doesn't just give you income, it gives you orientation. It tells you where to stand in the world. And when you've been loyal long enough, that orientation fuses with your sense of self. When it disappears overnight, you don't just lose a job, you lose a reference point. I tried to be rational about it. I told myself this was normal, that companies change, that restructuring happens, that this wasn't personal. I repeated those phrases like a prayer, but something inside me didn't accept them, because while the decision may not have been personal, the consequences were. My loyalty had been personal. I had chosen that company again and again. I had defended it in rooms where it wasn't present. I had absorbed stress on its behalf. I had identified with its success. And when it no longer needed me, it let go without hesitation. That's when I realized something uncomfortable. Loyalty had trained me to internalize responsibility without receiving security. I took ownership for outcomes I didn't control and accepted vulnerability without leverage. I called it commitment. The company called it availability. I began to see how often I had volunteered for burden without being asked. How many times I had said, "I'll handle it," to problems that were never really mine. How I had confused being useful with being valued. Useful is temporary, valued is rare. In the weeks after my departure, former colleagues reached out. Their messages were kind, predictable, short. "So sorry to hear. You'll land on your feet. Let me know if I can help." They meant well, but the conversations faded quickly. They still worked there, their days were still full. My absence had already been absorbed. That's another truth no one prepares you for. When you leave a company, life goes on without friction. Meetings still happen. Projects still move. Decisions still get made. The machine doesn't pause to honor contribution. It just reassigns it. And when you've built your identity around being part of that machine, watching it continue without you feels like erasure. I found myself checking my email compulsively even though I knew nothing would arrive. I checked out of habit, not hope. Habit is powerful. It lingers long after purpose leaves. My hands reached for tasks that no longer existed. My mind searched for problems that were no longer mine to solve. That's when anger arrived. Not loud anger, not explosive anger. A quiet, simmering anger directed mostly at myself, for not seeing it sooner, for not setting boundaries, for believing that loyalty would be returned in kind. I started asking myself questions I had avoided for years. What did I actually get in exchange for all that sacrifice? What had I protected by staying? What had I delayed? The answers were uncomfortable. I had protected a sense of belonging that was conditional. I had delayed parts of my life that didn't serve the company directly. I had postponed rest, curiosity, relationships, health. And for what? A role that could be redefined in 3 days. That realization reframed everything. I began to understand that loyalty, when it isn't reciprocal, becomes self-betrayal. Not immediately, gradually. You don't notice it while it's happening because it's framed as virtue, as professionalism, as dedication. But dedication without boundaries is just slow erosion. I thought about the language we use around work, family, team, mission. Those words create emotional contracts that are never written down. They make you feel like leaving would be abandonment. They make you feel guilty for protecting yourself. They encourage you to give more than you should without asking for clarity in return. And the moment the company needs to protect itself, those words disappear. I wasn't replaced by a person, I was replaced by a function. And that distinction changed how I saw everything. The worst part wasn't that they moved on. It was how quickly I realized I had built my sense of worth around being needed by something that had no capacity to need me back. That kind of realization doesn't fade quickly. I began interviewing, updating my resume, talking to recruiters. On paper, I was strong. Experience, results, leadership. But something had shifted internally. I no longer wanted to give myself away the way I had before. And at the same time, I didn't know how to operate any other way. Loyalty had shaped my instincts. I noticed how often I downplayed my needs in conversations, how often I emphasized flexibility over boundaries, how easily I slid back into proving mode. Even after what happened, a part of me still believed that if I just showed enough value, I would be safe. That belief was hard to kill. I eventually found another role. Good compensation, decent people, but I was different. More guarded, less available, less willing to absorb chaos without question. And that difference came with its own discomfort. I had to sit with the guilt of not being the same version of myself anymore. I had to grieve the version of me that believed loyalty was a shield. In the next thread, I'll tell you what finally broke that belief completely. The moment I understood what loyalty actually costs over a lifetime, and why I believe now that blind loyalty is one of the most dangerous habits a person can develop. The belief finally broke one afternoon when I ran into someone who had stayed. Someone I used to work beside. Same company, same culture, same promises. He looked older than I remembered, not just in years, but in posture. In the way his shoulders sloped forward like he was permanently bracing for impact. We sat down for coffee, and within minutes I could hear it in his voice. The exhaustion, the quiet resentment he didn't feel allowed to name. He told me about the new leadership, the new priorities, the new pressure, how loyalty was still praised publicly and exploited privately, how the people who stayed were carrying more work with fewer resources and less certainty, how everyone was replaceable now, even the ones who had been there forever. And then he said something that stayed with me. I keep thinking if I just hang on a little longer, it'll go back to how it was. That sentence landed like a verdict. Because I had said the same thing. For years. I had hung on through restructures, leadership changes, shifting goals, and silent expectations. I had believed that endurance was a form of control, that staying gave me leverage, that loyalty created safety. It didn't. It created inertia. I realized then that loyalty to a company is rarely rewarded with protection. It's rewarded with more expectation. The more reliable you are, the more invisible your effort becomes. Reliability turns into baseline. Baseline turns into entitlement. And entitlement never thanks you for what it assumes you'll keep doing. That's the moment I stopped romanticizing loyalty. I started to see my entire career differently. Not as a story of devotion, but as a story of misplaced trust. I had trusted an institution to remember me the way a person remembers you. To value me the way a relationship values you, to reciprocate sacrifice emotionally. Institutions don't do that. They optimize. They adjust. They replace. And they do it without malice, because malice would require attachment. That's when the anger finally resolved into something quieter and more useful. Clarity. I understood that loyalty is only healthy when it is mutual and explicit. When boundaries are honored, when sacrifice is temporary and recognized, when the relationship can withstand honesty. Anything else is not loyalty. It's submission dressed up as virtue. I stopped telling people to be loyal. I started telling them to be strategic with their energy, to protect their health, their time, their relationships with the same seriousness they protect their output. I stopped admiring people who worked themselves into exhaustion. I started worrying about them because exhaustion is not a badge of honor, it's a warning sign. I look back now and see how much of my life I placed on hold for a company that could not, by design, hold me in return. I delayed rest. I delayed curiosity. I delayed parts of myself that didn't serve quarterly goals. And when the company no longer needed me, there was no ceremony for that delay. Just a clean handoff. 3 days. That number still matters to me. Not because it hurt my pride, but because it clarified my priorities. It showed me how quickly the narrative of loyalty collapses when it meets operational reality. I don't hate the company. I don't even resent the people who made the decision. I understand now that they were acting within a system that rewards efficiency over memory. My mistake was expecting the system to care the way a human does. That mistake cost me years. If you're listening to this and you're pouring yourself into a company right now, I'm not telling you to quit. I'm telling you to be awake. To notice when loyalty stops being mutual. To notice when your identity starts shrinking around your role. To notice when your life becomes something you manage on the side. Do your work well. Be proud of it. But don't give your entire self to something that can replace you in days. Save your loyalty for people, for values, for parts of your life that can actually love you back. Because one day, whether you expect it or not, the meeting will come. The polite language, the careful tone, the explanation that isn't personal. And when it does, you'll want to know that you didn't trade everything for a seat that was never yours to keep. I gave my life to my company. They replaced me in 3 days. And that's when I finally learned where loyalty belongs and where it doesn't.